Welcome to another episode of Real Dad Speak. I'm your producer, Quincy L. Lewis, and along with our host, Miss Sarah McClure, we've come up with some of the most memorable moments of the past few episodes. Let's take a look and see what we came up with.
I was going to buy a car. I wanted to buy a car. And it was actually when I first got on the police department. I wanted to get another car. I wanted to get me a new car.
Okay.
And I went to the dealership and I saw the car I liked. And he looked at it and he ran my credit. And my credit was okay. But based on my time on the job and my age, they said, we kind of prefer that you have a cosigner. So, I went back home and I went by my parents' house. I wasn't staying there. And I was talking with my dad about it, and I was trying to fill him out to see if he would cosign.
Okay.
And, he said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I'm not going to cosign for you. He said, but you go back to the dealership and you ask the salespeople, how much more money do you need to put down in order for you to get the car in your name? So, and I was shocked because I'm like, well, they already say I need a cosigner. But I did it. I went back to the dealer and I was talking to the salesman and I asked him. So he went and talked to the sales manager or something. And he came back and he said, well, if you bring us $500 more, we'll put it in your name. So I went and told my father. And he loaned me $500 and I got the car.
Now, why wouldn't he co-sign? Did he ever tell you why?
Yeah, because he don't want to be responsible for me messing his name up.
His name. Okay.
Yeah. Because my mom and dad used to always say, it's two things that you have and two things you will ever own. And one is your word and the other is your name.
Wow.
So.
And you don't want anyone messing it up.
Nope, you don't want anybody messing it up.
We had a long talk and we decided that adoption was the way for us to go.
Okay.
She wanted a newborn baby girl and I wanted that for her. We were on the list. We did all the foster parenting classes because we were ready to bring this newborn baby home. We were on the list for almost 2 years. Our foster parenting license was about to expire and they called us about Marcus. And I remember that day so vividly. We met down at Eastern Market and went into this big room and they sat us down and he was there and his foster mom was in the building but not in the room. All the officials from Health and Human Services were there and they brought Marcus into the room. And he just froze, turned into a statue, and turned towards the wall and faced the wall. My heart melted at that moment. All I could think was, I'm going to get down on the ground. I'm going to go to his height. And that seemed to work. I was the first one that he walked over to. And he took me out the room immediately and took me to a window where the birds were playing. And he showed me all the birds. It was at that moment that I knew he was mine.
One of the things my father told me, again, like I said, my mom handled the purse strings. One of the things he always told me was, no matter who you are, be sure that you can pay all the bills yourself.
Okay.
He said, you might split bills and all that stuff when you're married or have a girlfriend, but be sure that you can do it all on your own because that other person may not always be there.
Wow, good advice.
And I imparted that to both of my kids. I said, hey, you got your boyfriends and you got your girlfriends and this, that, and the other. You guys moving in together and so forth. That's fine. Split the bills, split the rent. But know that if you break up, you don't have to lower your standard. Get used to a certain standard of living, but off of your own money. That way, that doesn't change.
We studied together, and we liked each other, and eventually fell in love with each other, and had my daughter, had my son. From that marriage, we stayed married 14 years. Um, and I had a son by a previous marriage. She had a daughter by a previous relationship,
Okay.
and we had a blended family. And it's like scrambled eggs. Everybody get in there, get in the mix.
All right. I was going to ask you, tell us about how it is being a blended family with young children.
It's it has its challenges. It really is. And I've always said after that, my hat's off to any man or woman
Mm-hmm.
who can come into a situation with children already involved. But understand this, I had to ask my stepdaughter if it was okay if I married her mom, because I needed for it to be okay with her first.
Right.
Or, I just trying to put everything into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love your mother. I love you. You have a dad. I'm going to be your stepdad. I know there are parameters for being a blended father. I'm there to support. I'm there to make sure you get everything you need, as well as everything the other children need and want. Need. You ain't gonna get everything you want.
Right.
That ain't gonna happen.
How old was she when you married her mom?
Oh, let me see. Probably about 6 or 7, something like that.
So
7
she
or 8.
understood what you was asking her?
Yes, she really did. Yes. And my son was there, and I'm like, this is gonna be y'all gonna be brother and sister,
Uh-huh.
and we're gonna be a family. We're gonna move on from here.
And does he have your name?
Not at all. He don't have no personal name,
First, last, or middle name? All right.
middle and last name.
So she just made up a name.
She gave him the name of close relations. So her other child name is Jalen. So she was trying to with his first name, trying to bounce it off of that, Jalen Jaden.
Okay.
But as far as his middle and last name, he's named after her other kid's father.
So when you heard this, did you want to change his name?
I did immediately.
And what happened?
She told me no. She said I have to prove to her that I'm gonna be a good father to him, and I have to do everything she wants me to do.
Have you proved it by now?
I proved it to my son. I don't know if it's. I proved it to my son, like when she told me that. So me being a new dad, I was trying to avoid the statistic rate of not being in my son like this and that, regardless of the situation. Because
Right.
one, he didn't ask to be here, and this is my bed, so I gotta lay in it. So no matter what, I did everything I was supposed to do. But once she knew that she could manipulate me, she just kept going with it. She kept going with it. And even when we went to court, the child support court, the friend of the court, whatever, I did a DNA test with them for the records.
Okay.
And the lady who was handling us said, even told her, well, like, now that you know this is your son's father, are you willing to change his name? She said, no, I'm not willing to change it, or nor will I consider it. I just want him to pay his child support and take care of his son.
And you can't override her as far as changing his name, right?
No. So years later, she actually signed the papers. But my son was like 9 at the time, and I talked to him like I tried to, because I don't want to take it away from him of something that he already know. But like when I have him, I tell him like, hey, you're a Johnson too, so understand that, like. And I try to explain the situation on the best a 9-year-old could understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess when the other kid's father had stopped having like dealings with her and he got engaged to whoever his fiance is now, the fiance told him to stop letting my son come over there. So now she calls me. It was like on her birthday or something. She called me, talking about she's willing to sign the papers, come over there so we can go over this and that. And I let her do it, but I was like, I'm not about to follow him now because my son knows his name. And it would take him too long to try to adjust to writing his name. And then she said I can only change the last name. So it's like, it's no point. Why would I just change his last name when he still has the name of another man for his middle and last name?
I kick myself in the butt for looking back at this. During the infant years, it's almost as if I wasn't the nurturing type. I have a newborn. Nurturing is something that I apparently didn't naturally take on to. My ex-wife did. She, nurtured and stayed home. Had a little bout of postpartum depression, worked through that, and but the nurturing is something that I lacked when my son was in the infant years, and
So
it wasn't
like not changing diapers and feeding him all the time, and if he woke up in the middle of the night, she had to do it.
Not so much, and it didn't bother me. She was always on top of it. She would push me out of the way to do all that. That was her. She was just a baby loving mother.
Right.
And so I never really was yelled at or told to do more or do any of that stuff. It just naturally, I kind of got pushed to the side. And I think looking back, I think maybe some fathers go through this, is you feel, what about me? It's very selfish, right?
Right.
And then it wasn't until age 3 when I really started to partake and really enjoy having a son, because he became fun, of course, right?
Talk and walk and
walk, play games. And I think looking back, I missed out on a lot of things during the infant years because I maybe checked out a little bit, started working midnight shift, and left her at home during the night hours and would sleep during the day. But don't forget, I had responsibility of stepdaughter who I would be up for in time to get off the bus, walk across the street from school, and I took over more of the handling of the stepdaughter role.
Because she was able to talk and tell you what she needed and what she wanted, whereas your son, when they're small, you don't know what they want. They do a lot of crying or a lot of sleeping, and you want to interact, I guess. And so you didn't realize that,
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
When I went in the military out of high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do or which way I wanted to go. This is one of those father-son conversations that my dad had. I remember sitting in the kitchen saying, hey, should I go in the military or should I go to college? I had a full ride to go to, I had a scholarship to go to to community college. And he says, this is a decision that you got to make, because when you wake up at 2:00 in the morning and you hate wherever you're at, I don't want you to say that I made you take that choice. And I was like, wow, that's some great freaking advice for a 17-year-old kid. And which was the best advice, because I went in the military and at 3:00 in the morning, I was like, what am I doing out here? And I would have blamed him.
Yes.
And so, and I say that he's done that kind of stuff for me to make me comfortable to have that conversation that I didn't have insight at the time. But luckily, I've always had the ability not to get burned and to listen a little bit and take good advice. So that being said, I joined the military at 18, went active duty, did 5 years out in McGuire, at McGuire Air Force Base. That's where I met my wife. We were working. We were actually working on the base. And
she's in the military.
And she was in the military also. And they said, hey, she's down there working. You might want to go check her out. I went down there, and then she fell in love with me. She gonna kill me.
My mom, who was there, she's 87. She's got dementia now, but when they're together, he brings her back, you know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she was very astute. She was right with it. So
Okay.
it was a very good day.
Remember when we were working, your mom had a little, she hit a little bump, and all of you guys got together. Tell me about that. Okay.
You know, my sister Julie, who was the primary keeper, just couldn't handle it anymore, couldn't handle her. And she was working. She's got a catering business uh, and a takeout place called Detroit Loves Tacos. And the business was taking off, and it was just hard for her to keep an eye on her. Everyone else, including me, we were all working. And we came to a decision to put her in a home, which was tough. My dad was livid. The man who told me, take care of your mother, take care of your mother. He couldn't believe that all his children were good with that. Boy, did he read us the riot act. He was upset. He says, bring her over here. I'll keep an eye on her. I mean, yeah. So, you know, he's getting up in age, and he's a good man, but he's a hard man too. He calls it like he sees it. And yeah, it would be tough on him. And anyhow, we tried it. We had a cousin who is new people in the caretaking business, and they found us a home in Taylor. But my mom didn't thrive there, and she wanted to go home. Yeah. So after a few months, we all got together and we did a division of labor. We would all take turns watching my mom, and the men who couldn't, namely me, I would give my sister money to pay for a nurse to keep an eye on my mom when it was my turn, because I'm the oldest, and if I had to, I would, but I am not going to change my mom's diaper. Uh, Not if I can help it. It's just the way I am. I'd rather fork up the dough and just visit her, be with her, make her laugh, and talk about old times.
The hardest lesson that I grew up. I don't know. Well, I would probably say just kind of thinking that it was going to be easy, because you look at how your parents did it, and you just took for granted that this is just automatic. That food, money's going to come in. We always going to have food. The bills are always going to be paid. As a child, you don't realize what it took to get that stuff done. But as an adult, you know, you got to balance stuff. When I first struck out on my own, I was struggling. Which is why I appreciate it so much more now. I was struggling. I mean, especially this, Sarah, when we got laid off.
Ooh, yeah.
That was no joke. Like, that unemployment check didn't cover everything. My unemployment check was like $555. My rent was $555. So what you gonna do with lights, cable, food, all that other stuff?
Right.
That was no joke. But when you're growing up, your parents make it, for some, they make it look like it's just automatic. It's easy. I didn't really think about where all this is coming from. So that.
Thanks again for checking out our most memorable moments. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Till the next time, from your producer, Quincy L. Lewis, and of course, our host, Miss Sarah McClure, we'll see you next week on Real Dad Speak.